Nathan. I would rather be board gaming. I don't know about you. Today I'm going to be looking at this game. I've had it for a while, and I hadn't opened it because, well, you'll see in a minute. It's a fantasy flight game, so we know it's going to have great components and a great insert. So, here's the game. Open it up. We've got, of course, the instruction manual. Here's a few player boards. Here's the actual game board. And as you can see, the box insert is, glare, sorry, not that great. It functions. And that is pretty common with some of the older Fantasy Flight. You've got your decks of cards. Once you open these, they'll just be loose in here. And then you have your bag of your wooden components. So I have the components laid out here. And in this game, each player, represented by the color of decks, will have their own deck of cards. And each deck of cards is identical. And then you have your player color components, your workers and your cubes and your discs. So all of these will be the same for each player. And then you have a stack of cards that represent victory points and special unique buildings that you can build during the game. Once these are out, they are just loose in the box. We're going to see if we can't do something about that and fix it. It's going. I have my cutting board, my straight blade. I've got some little box of pins here. I've got a metal ruler, very important. I actually picked this up, I believe, in the crafting fabric section of my local store. So, measuring the bottom of the box, a couple ways to do it. If you measure like this, you know this is going to be an overestimation. You can take off roughly 3/16 for each of the sides of the box combined. So you take off about 3/16, so we're looking at about 11 1/4. And if you do the same in here, it won't quite lay flat, but that is about 11 1/4. What you always want to remember, okay guys, measure several times, cut several times if you need to, okay? The way to do that is to have a little extra. It's okay if you cut a little big and then shave it off to fit. Now, let me get some of the board and show you what I have and what I'm using. This is a piece that I have already used some of for another game. And this is not the typical name brand, expensive board. Let's see if you can get a look at that. Okay, this is foam core. That means there's paper, and foam in the middle. That's simply all that is, okay? And this stuff I got at my local family, everything for a 99-cent tree type store, no name brands mentioned, but I actually got that in the school supply section of one of those type stores. And this is about 1/3 of the price of the name brand, okay, that you would get at your superstores. And this here is much lighter material. The paper is a little thinner. It cuts much easier, but you do have to be careful that you glue it well, that you keep it secure while you're gluing it. Once it glues, it's pretty strong. If you're constantly going to be pulling trays in and out, this might not be what many of you will want to use because it can tear if you're not careful. It can come apart easier than the name brand thicker paper, but this does cut much easier. It's much lighter weight, and so I actually like this because I can make inserts for more games for the price. Alright, so let's have a look. Okay, so I've done some measurements. I've made some notes. The book, the instruction manual, and the player boards together combined are almost 3/16 thick, and the board when folded was about 7/16. So that was easy math there. Came out nice and even, 10/16. So I just subtract that from the height that I want my walls. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is just continue from where I made my previous cut, and I measure 1 7/8, and what I'm doing here is that is 1/8 short of 2, so it'd be 2/8 short of 4 and 3/8 short of 6. Makes it a little quicker to mark off by doing it that way. I won't have enough to do the 4th. I'll have to go back and do that. And I'm going to cut my sides just a little bit differently from the way some people do it when they put them together. We'll come back and I'll show you that. So I have my walls cut, and if you notice, don't know if I can get it to focus, that one, the foam core in the middle, ripped a little bit. Now, the heavier duty foam core, I have noticed if your blade is not good and sharp and you do not get a nice, clean, even stroke when you cut, it will shred much worse than this does. And this one, the paper on the bottom side of your cut will sometimes rip. This stays together on the inside much better, in my opinion, than some of the others I've used. But you'll have to experiment on your own. And I can easily just put this on the bottom part where I glue, and we will never see it. Besides, it doesn't have to be perfect, guys. It's for ourselves. Now, this board had a few dents and stuff on this side, and on the other side it had some paper ripped. But I decided to make this the bottom because the paper fray on the edge will be covered by the wall. So, sorry, this is the dented side. Already pre-put some of the pins. I'm using just some tailoring pins. They have the heads on them. Small box of those, doesn't cost very much. Okay? And what I have done purposely, since this is a square game box and the insert will be square, I have made each wall slightly short. So, if I can hold this up and show you, there's a gap at the end. What am I doing? This way I can cut all 4 walls the same exact length and then overlap them in the corners, okay, instead of having to cut 2 long walls and 2 short walls. I like to do it this way. Plus it makes it easier to pin stuff because I just spin it and go. So, let's give it a try, see what we got. I got some glue. Now this here is name brand, but it says specifically on it works for a variety of surfaces, including foam board. So this stuff works good. Okay. I'm going to put some along the edge where I have my pins. And I'm going to put some, let's use this side, on the foam itself. Don't worry about having too much glue. You can wipe off. By pre-pushing the pins on the other side, it does make it a little cumbersome trying to handle, but it makes it so much easier to place your wall in place, let it somewhat hold itself in place. That way you can adjust the pins, wiggle them around to get them as straight as you can to push up through the side. Now this, as I've said before, this foam core I'm using is a lighter weight material than some of the others, and you can actually see the pins through that. And sometimes when you pull these pins out, you will see the holes. If you want, just put a little dab of glue, it'll cover it right up. These are going to be on the bottom anyway, on the inside of the box bottom, so I'm not going to care. Okay. If you have hard, flat piece of plastic, like an old credit card or something, you can slide it right through there and it'll do even better. Okay? Alright. Next wall. This one, I will be able to line up right on the corner with that. There is one pencil mark in this corner I missed. Although it wouldn't be seen, it'd be on the inside of the box. I'm just getting it anyway. and that will leave a small gap there for the next wall. So, now the first one of these I did on my own. I just said, alright, I'm going to take a chance and try to figure it out. And I made sure to start small, and I'm glad I did. I do not own Arkham Horror, but a buddy in my main gaming group does, and I would not advise starting with Arkham Horror or some type of game like that for your first box insert. Start small, start simple. Especially to get the feel for the knife and foam board that you're using, okay? And if your cuts aren't perfect, it's not super expensive material. You can just throw out a few of these small shavings, okay? Now, I'm probably going to pull this pin back out just a little bit so I can, forgot to add the glue in there, so got to talking, wasn't paying attention. I've got a few pins set here, ready to go. Have an old piece of cardboard box that I use since I got one of the smaller mats. Much less expensive to get a smaller mat, and it is plenty big enough to cut what I need to cut. And by using this cardboard, I don't have to worry about getting glue or my blade onto the table, and I have somewhere to put the extra pins. This time I will remember to glue this wall. Since this is paper, I don't really have to put any extra glue there. It'll work fine, especially the pins going in, binding it tightly, pressing it. Go. And I forgot to mention, so I'll mention it now, my cuts. This foam core is just shy of 3/16, but most basic size school supply foam core boards for school art projects are 3/16 inch thick. So when you go to cut your walls short, or when you go to do some sort of measurements like that, you can just subtract the 3/16 and you should be good to go. But of course, always double check with your board. They do have different colors, and a lot of people like the black, but some of my local stores, they charge an extra $1 or $2 for black. So, more bang for my buck by going with the white. And I will use this side. The art supply stores will charge you more for the colored back foam cores, and then most of my local family shopping superstores and such, they don't carry the black. Can't readily get it as easily as the white. I guess this is more preferred by schools for projects, and so they readily keep this in stock. Almost done. with the basic box assembly. Now, I can tell you I was not nearly this fast with my first one, and that's fine. I had to figure out how I wanted to cut, how I wanted it to look, measuring and remeasuring. But now that I've done a couple of these, I can go through the basics much faster. I'll get one more. All right, and we are done with the basic box insert. This will fit in the bottom of the box. Then we're going to put some dividers, maybe make some individual containers. I'm not sure yet. We'll have to figure that out. But this will be the main insert, and then the board and the manual will fit on top. Once you have a few dividers and walls in here, it'll hold everything nice and flat to set up on top. All right. Okay, I'm back to show you a little something here. I have all the individual player decks arranged in here, plenty of space, and on this blue deck, I have all of the blue players' wooden tokens. Plenty of space, plenty of room. I can divide this box easily into different individual compartments that will slide right out. So another insert inside this insert. Slide right out, you give it to that player. They can take the color that they want, grab one of these off the top. They are pretty much ready to go. Fast, quick, easy. And another thing I have done in the past with other games that come with box inserts like this, nice thick cardboard, cardstock, but the insert itself was not that great. I made my own insert. What to do with this? I can slide a deck of cards there. I could even get two here easily. And since these side walls are so tall, if you cut this from the underside, do some folding and some gluing, you could make a couple of small tuck boxes for these decks of cards, and you've got all this here. You could make some more if you need it. That is one option. I may just stick with simple trays on this one. Slide them right out and hand them to the player. Ready to go. Now what I've done here, since I know the length of those sides, and this is going on the inside, I already know how long to cut this and how tall to cut it. I cut it like my other walls and just subtract 3/16 for the thickness. Slides right in. Now what I've decided to do with this one, since this is coming out so nicely, I've kind of pre-measured. I've used some of these shavings so that I have a rough idea of how thick the sides will be. Because if I make another box insert and slide it down in here, I need to know that I have enough space, and I will. Now I've measured this roughly 5 5/16, roughly 5 5/16, both ways. Now what I can do is pre-insert partially a few pins. Okay, if you push it too far, that's fine. Just back it back out a little bit here on the sides. Do this side as well. Remeasure, make sure. Okay. Lined up. And since this is roughly 3/16 thick, you can just move over 1/16 or so. Estimate it, but if you want to get it a little more accurate, there you go. Now, I still have the pins in here. It's been roughly 30 minutes total since I've been working on this. That's probably plenty of time for this glue to dry. I could probably pull all these pins out if I want, but they're not bothering me too bad. I'm just going to leave them in. But what I'm going to do now is get a better measurement from the overall. That is roughly 5 3/4. Just to double check, make sure I'm lining everything up right. and that is roughly 5 3/4. If you want, you can go right there to the edge of the pins that I have stuck in the side, because I know I've lined those up, and then I can continue down here. So I can pre-insert those, take this out, run some glue on this piece here. Run the glue along this piece, edge, bottom, edge, then insert it, get your ruler back out, line it back up, push the pins in, good to go. Now I have it inserted here, I have pins on the outsides, pins on the bottom, okay? And what I did is I just went ahead and put a little extra glue by just rubbing this along down through there and then rubbing it in. You may have a few small gaps if you don't have perfect cuts, plus this will bow and bend some. It's fine, don't worry about it. Especially, it's not going to be seen once we have another box insert and slide down in here, okay? You won't see those little cracks, and plus, you're not doing this for anyone but yourself. Now this here is just to maybe help a few people from making a few mistakes, having to go back and fix them. I have some old pieces that I've used just as mock-up dividers to get an idea of what it's going to look like. So that means I'm going to have 4 walls, 1, 2, 3, 4 times 3/16, okay, 12/16 roughly, that I will subtract from this. Then I simply divide that in by 3 and I'll figure out roughly the width of each compartment of that box. And I want to make sure that that width will be wider than a specific number of those side by side. For like instance, in this case 3. It's not wide enough for 4. It would be too tight, but it is wider than 3. You want it a little spacious on both sides and this way, so that even somebody with big chubby fingers can reach in and grab those out. And of course, once you grab this insert, you lift it out on the table. If you need to, you can dump them on the table, but this will make it a little nicer and easier. And I just wanted to show my thinking process on how I'm going to design this little box insert for the resource tokens, in case you were wanting to follow along and do something similar. You might not make a mistake in your measurements and have to redo it, save you a little bit of time. At this point, I've added a few more divider walls here to divide this into 3 compartments, and they are almost exactly identical, not exactly. I would put in the walls first. If I wanted it to be exact, I would have to have some machines and computers to cut it for me, or I would just have to go online and order it from one of the manufacturers. There are lots of options on the box inserts, and they are really nice, but I want to just do it myself, save some money. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing over here. Once I measure this, I pinned it from this side, pinned it from this side, used a ruler to measure and pin it on the bottom. Okay, glued. Then I stuck the glue down in the corners just to get a little more glue. I'm going to let that set so that when I put these in on this side, I will remove these pins and only have pins on the bottom and this side. But that will get me my dividers, my compartments, so that I can measure each individual compartment and make some inserts for those. This way I add a little more strength and structure for when we get ready to place the manuals and everything on top, and won't have to worry about everything shaking around. You don't have to do it this way, but this is just an example of how I'm doing this one. Okay, I'm back for just a little bit just to show you progress we're at. I've made a few small box inserts. I still have the pins in, but they will go into these slots here and be able to pull out. So each player will have an individual slot, and then one of these I will do something special with at the end that we'll take a look at, that will be used for the resource pieces. Alright, see you a little later. And there you have it. Better Than You. This game only came with a small bag for storage. So we have improved that. just a couple of hours while watching TV or your favorite gaming marathon, have a basic insert. You can upgrade it by adding some colored construction paper to the compartments or tuck boxes for the cards. If you don't want them to slide around as much, but this will make for a much faster setup. I tend to stack my games 2 or 3 high, and so the walls on the inserts add extra support when you're stacking them. You could also use small food trays or condiment trays for your tokens if you didn't want them to slide around as much. I made individual boxes. I simply pull out what I need, hand them to the players, and here is one that will be used every game that has our individual resources and our victory point cards set right on top. We'll just set that to the side and set the remainder off the table. Now you will have to weigh the cost versus the time to see if it's something that you would be interested in. But if you enjoy painting minis, not just for the wow factor when you put them on the table, but also just to say, hey, I painted this mini to better enjoy my game, then something like this box insert may be ideal for you as well. Creating a game board insert is definitely not for everyone or for every game. Now, if you have a larger game like Arkham Horror that you play regularly, you might want to look at some of the options online. They're great quality products, lots of compartments, fast, easy setup, and takedown will increase your replay time. But for older games like this, it's usually hard to find a good insert. And something simple like this you can do yourself. And if it helps you get that one extra gameplay in of a game on your game night, totally worth the time. Well, as you can see, I'm set up ready to play. Thanks for watching, and stay bored.